We are back to another round of Turing Mock Interview series. My name is Jose, and I'm here today to interview Obella for the role of an experienced Flutter developer. Okay, and so before you ask, the question that you might see today is for YouTube purpose. Okay, and also if Obella give me wrong answers about any question that I made, I'm not going to correct them during the interview. Okay, the answer is the answer, the question the question. So yeah, so as that said, so I would like to welcome Obella. Okay, and so first of all, thank you for joining us today, Obella. And how are you doing, and how is your day doing so far?
My day is great, and it's awesome to be here.
Cool. So could you please introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about your background, your experience, okay? And then I will take from there.
Okay. Hi, I'm Isaac Obella from Uganda. I'm a mobile developer with over 6 years experience. I started my technical journey as a technical instructor with Linux and ethical hacking before transitioning to a mobile development role in Android with Java and Kotlin. I finally switched to Flutter about 3 years ago, and it's what I've been using since then.
Nice. All right, so that was great. So could you please let me know what were the most, exciting project that you worked on using Flutter?
Yeah, so my last project, which just ended a few days ago, was Drop Easy, which is an Indonesian quick commerce platform. It enables users to order for commodities through the app and get delivery in under 30 minutes. Yeah, which is pretty cool.
Cool. And my first question for you, okay? What is Flutter? Can you explain me what is Flutter?
Yeah, so Flutter is a Dart framework built by Google. It was designed in such a way that it can be used for cross-platform development across Android, iOS, Linux, Mac, and Windows, and web as well of late. So it's a very interesting platform to use.
Nice. And as that said, could you please explain to me the concept of class in Flutter?
Sorry?
So could you please explain the concept of class in Flutter?
Okay, so in object-oriented programming, classes are just used to maintain variables and objects and methods that should be encapsulated or reused by a list or an object. Yeah, so that uses the exact same procedure.
Nice. And could you please let me know the difference between a stateless widget and stateful widgets?
Yes, so in Flutter, state is basically synchronous data which can be read while a widget is built. So the major difference between stateless and stateful widgets is for stateless widgets, this state object is immutable, so it can change during the life cycle of the widget. And for stateful, this state can be changed, and you can use that using the setState method.
Cool. All right, but now I'd like to ask you, what's the difference between getX, block, and provide? And which one in terms of state management do you prefer, and why?
Yeah, so currently the state management platform is a bit of a war. I've seen a lot of getX, block, and provider arguments online. And block mostly uses streams. These streams have events. And each time you add an event to a stream, the block just works on that particular event and emits a state. and then your UI can react to whichever state is emitted. So this is a bit of reactive, and it's one of my preferred methods since it works well with larger projects and is nicely testable using the block testing procedure.
Cool.
The other option is GetX. So GetX was one of the new kids on the block. It's really simple to use, and it's really good for beginners. Though, if you read the documentation, it's not really a state management platform. It's more of a library because it comes with extra functionality for routing and dependency injection, which is why some bigger projects don't use it because it's a bit bloated. The last one is Provider. So Provider is really simple to use. It works directly with Flutter's Flutter Foundation's Change Notifier API, which is something cool since it uses what already exists within Flutter. It's only tricky to use it a bit in larger projects. So the creator of Provider has created a River pod, which I'm yet to actually use, but I've heard great things about.
Got you. All right. And okay, what's the difference between unit and widget? Okay, and integrated tests in Flutter.
Yeah, so unit testing mostly tests functions, methods, and classes. So it's like the lowest level of testing, and it's the fastest of all the three. It also uses Flutter tests libraries inbuilt function called tests. So you can just directly use it within your Flutter project. The widget test, on the other hand, these test UI components from widgets. So this can be stateful widgets or stateless widgets. It doesn't matter. Yeah, so still same, you use the Flutter test package, and it comes with test widgets function, which simplifies the entire testing procedure. So you just pump a widget to the UI, and then it gives you a proper output. The last one, the integrated tests, for those from an Android background, it's similar to instrumented tests. Yeah, so these test the entire app's functionality or a large part of the app's functionality. So these actually run on a live device, meaning they are the slowest of all the three. They currently also use the same Flutter test package, which makes it a lot easier to write integrated tests. However, you'll have also to add the integration test package as well.
Okay, got you. All right, so next question, okay? How do you monitor errors in a Flutter application?
So in Flutter, we currently have mainly two kinds of errors. There are errors that are created by the widgets. So if your widget build fails, probably due to a nullable object or a certain value missing. So we have error widget, which gives you a red screen with the error within the widget itself and within the screen. And then we have errors which are generated from the infrastructure layer. So in case you get an exception, let's say while reading data from an API, these are other kinds of errors. So since that runs on a single isolate, you can work directly with zones, data zones, to be able to capture all these errors and feed them to whatever platform you want to. So you could do this in the main.dat part of the app and run up within a run zone guard, and then handle all errors in the on error option, and then you can feed these errors to whichever platform you wish to.
Nice. Next question. What do you understand about material and Cupertino aspect of this Flutter design?
So Material was initially designed by Google as a design specification to follow across web, desktop, mobile. And Flutter comes with it predefined and inbuilt through the material.dat package of Flutter. So in case you start a new Flutter project, it will come with already preset to use Material. However, in case you need to use a more specific design component for iOS, let's say your app is only supporting iOS users, so you'd have to switch and use the Cupertino platform. So for the Cupertino platform, you'd have to switch your Material app with a Cupertino app and your scaffolds with a Cupertino page scaffold.
Next question. And before release an app in production, okay, what step do you consider to make sure the functionalities are working fine, and also if the app is optimized or not?
So one of the first steps before you think or plan to release to production is to run all your tests and ensure that your widget tests, your unit tests, and your integrated tests are performing perfect. I usually do this by sending my tests to Firebase Test Lab so that the app can be tested from end to end. Then before I move on to production build, I try to remove resources that aren't used to cut down on the app size. So these resources can be fonts, images, or even packages or plugins that are not being used by the app. So you can clean those out. And then the final step is I do a bit of that obfuscation. So obfuscation, yes, keeps your code safe and a bit hard to reverse engineer. But it also helps strip down some of the unused bits of the code. Yeah, nice. All these steps, it's really good to automate them with CI so that you don't have to do this process manually.
All right, next question. Next question is related to development side, okay? What's Dart and why does Flutter use it?
Yes, so Dart is an object-oriented programming language with inbuilt garbage collection, which was designed by Google in about 2011. It had few use cases then till Flutter was released. And Flutter uses it mostly because of three major use cases. One is ahead of time compilation, also known as AOT, which means that your Dart code can be directly compiled to native code. So if you're doing Android, that's Java. If you're doing iOS, that's Objective-C. And if you're doing web, that's JavaScript. The second thing is Flutter didn't want to use a different language for the UI design. So instead of having XML or JSX for designing UIs, we can directly use Dart for the UI as well, which makes the UIs declarative. And third option is the just-in-time compilation. Yeah, so this works very well during development and makes development really fast. So if you've heard of hot reload or hot restart during your app development, you don't need to do a fresh build of the app. The code changes happen on the fly, which is really cool.
Nice. I'm glad you talk about hot start and hot reload. Okay. What's the difference between hot start and hot reload?
Yes. So hot restart means that the app is going to dump its entire state. Basically, you start with a fresh state. So in case, this rarely happens, but in cases where, let's say you've introduced a new let variable into your state, so your app could fail with let initialization error. So you would need to have a hot restart to dump the entire state and reload it. Meanwhile, for hot reload, this happens on the fly. The code gets compiled, sent to the .vm, and the app UI updates instantly. So it's a lot faster than the hot reload, than the hot restart, sorry. And most of these two cases are already pre-built in IDEs, so you don't need to manually add them. VS Code and Android Studio already have them. However, if you're working with a terminal version of a Flutter execution, you'd have to use Ctrl-R for your hot reload and Ctrl-Shift-R for your hot restart.
Nice. All right. Could you please differentiate between required and optional parameters in Dart?
Okay, so Dart functions come with a few functionalities and a way to pass variables. One of them is required positional variables. So these usually come first in the function call, and they are a must to be passed. In case you don't pass them, your function will have errors. The second one, we have optional. So these are optional named parameters, and we also have optional position parameters. So these usually come after the required parameters, and you can have one of the two. You can't have both, the optional named and optional position. Then for named parameters, you can explicitly declare them as required using the required keyword, which means that your function will complain in case the variable is not passed.
Got you. And what do you understand about streamings? Okay, and what's the different type of streamings that Flutter supports?
So streams, when we do asynchronous programming in Dart, we use streams mainly to handle a list of asynchronous data. So this data can be strings or integers, and so long as you need to subscribe to them or unsubscribe to these particular events, you can use streams. We mainly have two streams in Flutter or Dart. We have the single subscription streams. So as the name says, this can only be subscribed to once. And in case you try to add another listener to them, you'll get an exception. And the other is the broadcast streams. So this can have simultaneous subscribers. So you can have one or more subscribers, and even after unsubscription, you can start a fresh subscription.
Okay, and follow-up question about this. What's the purpose? Okay, what's the usage of a single subscription stream?
So one of the commonest usage for single subscription streams is working with large chunks of data. So an example is when you're reading a large file from the disk. This is a heavy process. So you can break it into streams and load these data chunks, let's say by 256 KBs, which is...
Got you. And so what are nullware operations?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
What are nullware operations? Nullware.
So that supports a bit of operators to help developers work with null data. So in Flutter 2, we got null-aware operators. And one of them is the question mark dot, which can be used to access properties of a nullable object. So in case you have a class that can be null, to access its properties, it's good to use the question mark dot to safely access its properties. The other one is the double question mark operator. So this is a short form of if-else. So If the left side is null, it will process the right side. And in case the left side is not null, it will basically skip setting the right side of the variable. Then we have the double question mark equals. So this is, we call it the nullable assignment. So in case your variable is null and you need to assign a value to it if it's null, you can use the double question mark equals to assign that. And the last is the null spread. So these are 3 dots and then a question mark. So in case you have a list that's nullable and you need to spread it into another list without having to have an extra if statement, you can use the 3 dots and question mark to spread. So if the list is null, it will skip the spreading procedure. And if the list is not null, it will spread it into the other list.
Gotcha. And why do we pass functions to a widget?
Yes, so in that, functions are first-class citizens and objects. So we can directly pass them to functions, which is something really good. This is mainly used when you need to handle events, let's say in a widget. So for example, if you have a button and you need to handle the tap event, you just pass an on-tap function and the widget will react to this particular function.
Okay, and last question. What's the future in Flutter?
So futures are results of an asynchronous operation. So best example I can use is getting data from an API. So when you make a request to the backend, the future begins processing. And when that data returns, let's after a few milliseconds, you can check if the status is successful or an error. So you can complete your future with success. Let's say if you have status 200, and in case it's, let's say, status 500, which is an error, you can return an error from the future. So it's really good for working with weights. Yeah.
Nice. All right. So thank you, Obela. That was really nice to speak to you today. And for everybody else who is here, so you can go to turing.com/jobs and apply for the job that is suitable to your tech stack. Okay. I hope you enjoyed this mock interview series as much as I did. And that was a great talk with Odela today. We will be back very soon with more episodes like this in the future, in the upcoming videos. Till then, don't forget to give us a big fat thumbs up for this video and comment down below what kind of mock interview you would like to see in the future. Okay. Till then, don't forget to subscribe to Turing.com. Subscribe to our channel if you are not subscribed already. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, so we are all there. And until the next video, stay safe and give us a big fat thumbs up. Hope to see you again. Thank you, Obela, and have a good one. Take care.